Source Pro in Conversation is brought to you in association with Leapin, Australia's leading plan manager and two-time winner of the Most Outstanding Plan Management Award. Visit leapin.com.au to learn more.
Hello everyone, my name is Carer Burnout and I am so excited to host this next segment where we're going to get into the heart of what families experience after receiving a diagnosis and how we as professionals can engage with them in a more meaningful way. So I'm joined today by Rebecca Glover, an advocate, a founder and a passionate inclusion champion who has spent years supporting families through early childhood and beyond, and the incredible Christine Cronin, a writer, a parent and a carer who brings a raw and honest perspective to what life is really like when you're raising a child with complex needs. So together, they're going to be unpacking the emotional load of diagnosis, the risk of burnout, and what truly family-centred care and support can look like in practice. Welcome, Rebecca and Christine.
Hello.
Hello. How are you both?
Good.
How are we both feeling today?
Good.
Loving our little couch setup?
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we kick off, I was just thinking, I was really craving chocolate before, and I was just thinking, I feel like some Smarties, but if you were to sort of describe yourself as like one of the colours of Smarties, how would you describe yourself? What colour would you be?
Oh gosh, I've never been asked that question before.
Well, welcome to Source Pro.
Maybe purple.
Purple, fancy. And what about you, Beck?
Orange.
Orange. Oh, is that because of a Jaffa?
Yeah, it's kind of the Jaffa flavour, so it's a little bit, I look forward to that little orange flavour.
That's interesting. Okay. So to begin, I want you to share a little bit about your journey and what's shaped your understanding of what families really need when they're navigating this kind of diagnosis and care space. Can you start us off?
Yeah, sure. So my journey, I guess, in the space of supporting a child with complex needs and being a carer and an advocate in the space started 16 years ago when my daughter Ruby was born. She was born healthy, no kind of issues presenting themselves at that stage. And then about 9 weeks in, everything just turned to grey. Everything was unknown. All of a sudden, I had what I thought was a happy, healthy child. Then screaming started. It went for, well, long story short, screaming went for about 3.5 years, 24/7. So that was really intense. And then having Ruby's sibling, who's 2 years older, navigating the hospital system. So the whole journey has been that just navigating the unknown, and through that, even 16 years on, I'm still seeing that not a lot's changed since back then. And when I was looking, I guess my passion is the early childhood space, and a little bit of health as well, but mainly the early childhood was when I was looking for that place of getting some childcare or getting a little bit of, I guess, respite, which we don't use these days too much in NDIS land, but getting that breather back then, and again pre-NDIS, there wasn't anywhere for Ruby to go. Some places, they were trying to help and said, we can support her for 2 hours a day. But yes, I'd given up my career by then, so I was a full-time carer. Family life kind of dismantled a little bit, and my then husband and I went our separate ways, so I was doing it on my own with the 2 girls. And thought, well, I need to reinvent myself to be able to support Ruby and Sophie the best way I can. And that's when I thought, well, if nowhere's going to take Ruby, I need to create something. And that's when I started a family daycare, which grew into what Ruby and Ollie's is today. And from supporting 4 children a day, we've helped over 500 odd, maybe 1,000 children across the past, 12 years.
A little bit of a scale up.
And it's crazy. I still have to pause to actually think of that, from that little thought of seeing that gap. And unfortunately, that gap still hasn't been filled. outside of what I'm seeing that we're doing here in Queensland. So that's a little bit about me and kind of the journey of getting to
what you hear. Beautiful. Lived experience leading the way. And what about for you, Christine?
Yeah, so our journey began, so my son's name is Cody.
Yeah.
He's 13 years old. And he was diagnosed at birth with a bilateral hearing loss. And I'll be honest with you, nothing prepares you for that moment. Nothing prepares you for that detour in your parenting journey. He was later diagnosed with a long list of complexities. And in the beginning, those first days, those first weeks, months were really hard. They were really heavy. It felt like we were just kind of dumped in the deep end. No guidebook, no map, no backpack, no skills for survival. And we were suddenly expected to navigate appointments and learn a new language and therapy terms and still try to function as a family. And we were bombarded with feelings. There was grief, absolutely, but there was also overwhelm. There was guilt. There was fear. I was trying to be a new mum of two. I was kind of placed into this new role of advocate, which I had no idea how to do. I still needed to be a wife, and I still needed to, run a house, and it was really tricky. And it was this lived experience that has really shaped what I now believe families need. And that's not just guidance through the system. I think we need care and compassion and people who understand that there's a person behind the diagnosis. Yeah. And behind that person is a family carrying them through it all.
That's a beautiful sort of way to I think, paint the picture for both of you, how important not only the person with the lived or living experience is so central, but for that person's sort of sense of empowerment and belonging in the world is the nucleus of people around them, supporting them. So on that notion of being a parent and a carer, Christine, what was some of the most, or maybe rather than some of, but what was maybe the most difficult moment that you faced in engaging therapy supports? And what do you think that allied health professionals need to understand about that time that you experienced?
Well, the first few weeks and months post-diagnosis were some of the heaviest moments we have ever been through. We were still trying to process what the diagnosis even meant, and we were drowning in appointments and information and feelings. And I remember a point when we were sitting in a therapy waiting room one day, and my daughter I can't remember how old she was, but she was she had just, I guess, been introduced to the world of waiting rooms. So
oh gosh, real literally.
Her whole world had been turned upside down as well. And I was sitting there, and it kind of dawned on me that I didn't even know who we were there to see that day. And I had pulled out, back then it was your little red baby book.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they still have these, because this was 14 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So I pulled out my...
you remember that Where Do I Come From book? Anyway,
yeah.
That's my reference anyway.
Yeah. And I pulled that out, and in there I was keeping a list of all of the names of people that we were seeing and the appointments and that. And I counted 19.
Oh, wow.
19 professionals that my son was seeing. And I thought to myself, how am I supposed to remember what to even ask today when I don't even know who we're here to see? And I just remember thinking, you know, I have all of these questions. I don't know where. I have all of these fears. I remember just thinking to myself that I didn't. It wasn't that I didn't want to be there, but I also I felt sad that I was there.
Like that grief.
Yeah.
Processing,
Yeah. And if I could go back and whisper to the professionals, I would say, hey, I'm new here. I don't really know what I'm doing. I want to be here. I have all of these hopes and dreams for my son. I want him to achieve his goals, but I'm scared.
Yeah.
I have this continuous emotional whiplash between accepting this and really wanting to do this, and also wishing that I was taking him to soccer practice instead.
Yeah. That's a huge sort of duality to balance, I imagine. Yeah. And I imagine for you, Rebecca, you've sort of had some similar dualities to balance. What do you, when you're working with families in early childhood and disability inclusion, what do you see as like what Christine just described? What do you see as the emotional and logistical gaps in the early years post-diagnosis that professionals like might not actually be gauging?
Yeah. The waiting room definitely is something huge in our lives, and so many, it brought up something I absolutely remember. Sorry to just digress a little bit.
Digress away.
Just one moment of, I saw this woman once, ophthalmology, and I guess like hearing and sight, it's one of those biggest moments of when that's not quite right. It's like the end, that's huge. If my child can't hear or they can't see, this is huge. And how do I even navigate this? And this, I remember this woman just really abrupt. We went in, and again, I'm like, I don't really know why we're here. Went in and said, well, I don't, like, put these drops in her eye. Said, well, I don't know if she can see. She probably can't see, and off you go. And that was like huge. But going back to, parents are just thrown into this world unexpectedly, unwillingly, unknowingly, and that first time of being in that often or not, it's you're in this hospital room when that news or diagnosis comes. For Ruby, we didn't get an official diagnosis until she was 10, so I had 10 years of just unknown, and we just got labels, cerebral palsy, this and that, just to get funding. But again, all the treatment for those weren't necessarily right for Ruby now that we have her diagnosis. But I think that key of connection, a wraparound service in those early years within that hospital system to then help you. Now with the NDIS, everything has become so individualised that they're just thrown out back home to get on with life as normal. There is no normal anymore. I think it's so important, and what I see with families is we need to go in and wrap ourselves around them, or therapists. There needs to be the connection. Everything's so disconnected, and that's, definitely what I'm seeing as missing or needed.
That's beautiful. And so just quickly on that, you've advocated for stronger alignment between therapy and education and goals, like NDIS goals. What are some of the ways that you think some of the therapists could work more collaboratively across like all the silos to serve the whole child and the family?
I think there are so many different therapists that can play out in your space, especially early on. More often or not, it's maybe coming from the medical side. So you not only, even in the hospital system, one, like rehab don't speak to neuro, and neuro don't speak to spinal, and like no one there. So there needs to be more collaboration, I think, in that aspect. And then with regards to therapists, yes, it could come down to software, it could come down to just one place where your child, everything about them is in one place, and then anyone can just see what's going on. Because you're tired, you don't know what to say from one person to the next. I can't actually remember what this OT is doing compared to that OT, and how that's going to help Ruby. I wish it was different, but for people to genuinely be able to have that time to talk and connect and that to each other, I don't think that that's kind of where we are at the moment. So I think it's going to come down to really smart technology to help take that pressure away and make things more efficient. I think that efficiency will just help a parent go, you know what, everything's there. Can we now talk about my child, and let's look at enriching their life rather than just focusing on what you've got to tick your boxes.
Yeah, I think that piece around efficiency is so important to essentially like self-sustainability, right? And so as parents or loved ones, it's common that we're going to reach burnout. And so what does career burnout, Christine, look like? How would you describe career burnout, and what do you think that therapists are either unknowingly doing to increase that burden, or what could they do to prevent it?
Carer burnout is, it's not always loud. It doesn't always come in with a big bang, with fireworks and pom-poms. It's not always visible, and burnout is, it's the slow breaking of a person that has carried too much for too long without enough support or space to breathe. And that is our life as a carer. We are pouring so much of ourselves into somebody who needs so much. And so for me, burnout often shows up more as just this harassing voice in my head saying, I can't keep going. I can't keep doing this. I can't continue doing this while I still continue doing it.
Is there anything that a therapist can do to help prevent that?
Yeah, sure. I think that therapists can definitely add to that load.
Yeah.
I think that, with extra paperwork, not enough flexibility, too many appointments.
Right. Just overload. Really.
Yeah. And I think too that they could also be the reason we don't break, with a kind word, adding flexibility into our plans, working with us. I think that's really important. I think that if we can work as a team to support our child, that would be really helpful.
I think that team word stands out to me. I want to know from both of your perspectives, what does truly family-centered practice look like, and how do you think we can balance the goals for the child as well as the family? I'll start with you, Rebecca.
Family-centered therapy, I think first it is the family.
Yep.
So more often or not now, I know we have a lot of therapists coming to our home. So first of all, they're coming into our home space. I know as being a carer, mum, woman, you have pride in how your home is, but sometimes that's just not the reality. When they're stepping in, there's stuff everywhere. You've had a bad night, your child's not great, you're concerned, you've got this underlying simmering of, am I packing a bag to go to the hospital tonight? There's this just constant underlying hyper-vigilancy about everything, but nothing at the same time. And to focus, I think that family-centered, it's just, for me, it's for someone to come in and just to have that sense about them, like, it's okay, I get it, like, I'm not here to judge. They see my other children, and if it means actually giving them a little bit of attention to help the whole situation, whilst incorporating them, because their lives are upside down as well, and they do need that emotional support, and so building them into everything that's going on, as well as if there's partners or husbands, and including everyone. So I think just for me, it's a simple perspective of look at the whole family and not just that child, because that child is, we're
Just
all
part of a bigger system.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful way to say it. How would you?
Yeah,
What do you think?
I would agree. I would say family-centred, true family-centred practice to me sounds like working together.
Yeah.
Really focusing on that partnership, and understanding that, our child is not just a checklist of goals, and that when my daughter was about 6 or 7, she might have been a bit younger, but one of the things she said to me that sticks with me all the time, that has really made me remember that she's part of this as well, was that we were on our way to another appointment that week, and she had to have the day off school, so she was protesting. She didn't want to go, and I was buckling them into the car, and she said to me, "Mum, is Cody going to be special needs forever? Because I'm kind of getting sick of it." And it was in that moment that I made a promise that I would check in with her as well. But that message behind those words was, this is a lot for me too. And she's giving up so much of her life to help support her brother, sitting in waiting rooms. And so it really is a whole family thing. Yeah. And I made a promise that I would check in with her, and I would also check in with the rest of us too, and I would pause therapy or appointments at any point that it was getting too much for us. And I think that that's really important for any professional to understand, that there's so much going on, outside of just that appointment. We have a whole world. We have, life. Yeah. Regular life that everybody else is living as well, on top of 19 different professionals that we have to see, And so I think that's the thing. We have to really work together to understand that there's more to it than just this one therapy.
And for therapists to be honest that if they're just coming because it's in the calendar, but we're not really seeing progress, or if it's not really making a great difference in our lives at that point in time, to go, why don't we just hold off for a while? Not just do it just because. Yes. Because as a parent, you're just trusting with what they're saying, but for them to go, you know what, let's just walk,
Yeah, because sometimes the progress is space for us stepping back. Like we can go forward if we can just have a little bit of space to breathe sometimes. Right. I think that's just showing up to an appointment is a win some days. So I think that's important to remember.
I think that's really beautiful that you're really encapsulating, both of you, in this chat, that it is a shared experience, and it's something that I think needs to be acknowledged, and space really needs to be offered and acknowledged. But in just like a few words, we've got a captive audience here. What's one message that you want to leave for our viewers right now?
Got to make it really. Everyone's in this great land of NDIS right now, and I think it puts so much pressure and stress and emotions on families. And yes, we can talk about therapists, and this is what this is about, but let's, rather than focusing on goals and box ticking and capacity building, which I really when you've got a child that their capacity building is actually just living another day, let's look at how we can enrich lives as opposed to just ticking boxes.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
Like that one.
Enrich lives, tick boxes.
And it's so true, because we don't tick many boxes that have been set out, but we tick so many more that we create ourselves.
100%.
So, yeah.
Mate, you're both so aligned. How about for you, Christine?
Yeah,
What's the message?
I absolutely agree with that. I would say lead with heart before strategy. I think before coming in and, as you said, checking boxes and writing reports, and check in with us. Ask us what's going on, what's manageable right now, what's helping, what's not working, and really focus on working as a team to get through. I think that's what's really needed.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I think fundamentally the messages that I'm hearing, and I think we're all getting, is that to move away from this sense of sort of objectivity or subjectivity really, and ticking boxes is very passé. It's not really the kernel of what we're talking about here, which is about connection and belonging, and that really everything about what the experience is for someone with a living experience actually involves the carers, the support crew, and you've both so beautifully articulated that. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Cal.
Thank you.